Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode at Fit Bod Institute. So, no Coach Phil here today, and for this episode, just Coach Tyler. And I am joined by one of my long-term clients, David. We've been training. I was looking back, we were talking about just before we hopped on here. You reached out in 2020, so we're coming up on 5 years. I think it was October 2020. So we're got a few more months to go, but it's been 5 years. And so,
Yeah,
just wanted to get you on. And I think, it's important to hear real world experience. You and I have worked through a lot together. We've gone through multiple building phases. We've gone through multiple fat loss phases. We've dealt with,
pandemics.
we've dealt with pandemics. And we have like I said, we've done a lot. And so, maybe just a little quick introduction for yourself, a bit of a background, how you got into fitness, maybe why you got into fitness. And then we'll kind of just talk about things that we've done, what we've learned along the way, and we'll kind of continue to go from there.
Yeah. So, okay. We're going in the way back machine here of my life. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to be 62 in a couple of months.
Awesome.
So when I talk about graduating high school, like in 1981, yeah, I mean, I graduated high school before you were born, man. Okay. Yeah. So my lifting history goes back then. And I know that, I mean, maybe this might sound kind of weird, but back then, and although I played sports in high school, we didn't spend a lot of time in the gym. I mean, we just kind of, went out and, played and, whatever. But I really got interested. So then I graduated high school in 81 and I went off to college. And I remember coming home that first Christmas when I went to college. So it was right as we were going into 1982. And I went into a gym and I just met some young guys, fitness guys, some bodybuilder guys and stuff. And it just, I just loved it. I loved it. And maybe part of what I loved was just hanging out with guys and something to do over Christmas. But I enjoyed it. And I was working out pretty hard then, went back to college. And then when I came home that next summer, I think I spent the entire, what summer break, 3 months or something like that, in the gym and just loved it. And may I say, I appreciated the feedback that I received once I got back to college. Yeah, hey, what were you doing? You put on some size, you look good, blah, blah, blah. And, through all those years, I definitely, I wish I knew then what I know now. And I wish, all the things that you taught me and everything that we've been through, Tyler, there are moments when I'm kind of oh my God, I wasted a lot of time doing stupid stuff. And,
Yeah.
I guess that's part of life, right? But anyway, I got out of college, got married, had kids. My wife and I now have 3 men. I have 3 sons. What are they? 23, 29, 32. My wife and I have our first grandchild and 1 on the way. So, that's a lot of kind of weightlifting history in there. Kind of in the middle though, it must have been around 1999. I entered one of and this was pre-internet, right? In 1999. So I entered one of the very first body transformation contests that I remember seeing. And it was Bill Phillips from EAS out of Colorado, his Body for Life thing. And I didn't win, but I did get an honorable mention, which was kind of cool. And it really started making me realize how important the nutrition was and all of that. So from 2000 until meeting you, even with that extra knowledge, and I understand things change and philosophies change, but again, another stint of wow, I wish I knew then what I know now, and really kind of how important that nutrition aspect is, and kind of bringing it all together. Maybe that's what here's the mistake I made.
Yeah.
I want to look like this, So I'm going to pick this most extreme nutrition and I'm going to pair it with the most extreme training program. And I'm going to pair it with the most extreme cardio program. And well, that's going to work, right? And I reflect back upon like my early workouts. And again, this was pre-internet. Like, where did we get them from? Muscle and Fitness magazine, Flex magazine. And I remember my dear friend, still my best buddy in college. We would get the latest magazine. So we're doing. Okay, let's do Lee Haney's arm workout with, like whatever, Sergio Oliva's chest workout. Like, well, this will work. And no, it doesn't work. And I one of the things that you really showed me is how we need to get all these things to work together, and they do work together. And not only training and nutrition, but also sleep and rest and recovery and our deload weeks and all of that type of stuff. So seriously, like for anybody that's listening, Tyler, like, and I don't mean to glorify this, you really, truly have changed my life.
Yeah.
And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, brother.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And this isn't the sole reason we're having you on.
It's I understand. I understand, but it's real. But what you do is real. It is real.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And, it's kind of funny you mentioning the Flex magazines, because as granted, as maybe I'm not quite the elder statesman you are, I still I use Flex magazines quite a bit too, and I can always remember the meal plans they'd have in them, and it would always be like swordfish, and I'm like, one, where am I going to get swordfish? Two, how am I going to macros weren't even like a thing then, right? And it was still very much meal plans and just clean food, and you would try and copy all these crazy workouts when. Even back then, you're not realizing how many steroids these guys are on, right? Probably we're not getting the same results.
Right. So me as a 21-year-old eating in a college cafeteria, natural was following workouts, like these extreme workouts and extreme, from high-level genetic people that were enhanced. Right. Yeah. And I thought that would work for me.
Yeah, exactly. No. Right. It's nope, it doesn't.
No,
unfortunately.
No.
But when, I guess that kind of brings us to when you reached out and, we got started working together. I mean, you are already quite in shape. You were already pretty familiar. Well, I mean, compared to now, I would say you're almost in better shape, right? But you were still, already there. Like, we had a good foundation to build off of. You are already familiar with tracking macros and your calories and your training. And so we already had a pretty good foundation to build on. And, I was looking, and I wish I had some of the earlier data since, we switched to Trainerize. But from what I remember, we started off with a little bit of a building phase first. Ultimately you were wanting to diet down and lose a little bit of body fat. But from what I remember, and maybe you can correct me, but we established some, maintenance calories. We took some time to just track on a consistent basis before we were going to go ahead and diet down. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. We might have done, and I have all those old records. I could go back and I could give you details on all of that, how many calories we were eating day one. We might have gone into some semblance of a cut fairly.
I think, but I mean, it helped that you already had that foundation, right? And I think, and maybe you can expound on this a little bit and what you've kind of learned, but the importance of having maintenance calories and not just dieting all of the time and taking the time to build a little bit of muscle. I mean, even, I get this question asked a lot is, at my age, can I still build muscle? I'm like, yeah, go check out my client, David.
Yeah. So, okay, for the record, reflecting back upon almost 5 years ago when we started working out together, I have never felt this good in my entire life.
Yeah.
I like right now, and we just started a little bit of a cut like 4 weeks ago. Okay, so I'm not too far into a cut yet, but I just feel good. I feel big. I feel strong. I feel mobile. I feel like the only time arthritis flares up is when I do something stupid to make it flare up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I drink red wine, it's going to hurt, right? So we know those things. But yeah, did I answer your question? I think
Yeah,
I.
yeah, yeah. And then, I mean, I think part of it, too, is, we've spent so much time working together. It's really allowed us to learn, a lot about your body too, right? And we've learned every 6 to 8, or sorry, 8 to 9, 10 weeks, we need a deload, right? We know that we can push for that long. We need a slight 1 to 2 weeks off. We know X amount of calories on even a weekly average in maintenance is maintenance. We know what we can kind of get away with and where we can have flexibility and really worry about gaining a bunch of body fat. We know when we come into a cut, kind of what we need to do, where we need to be. And so, doing all of those things together over multiple years has kind of just really allowed us to almost like automate the process a little bit, right? Where it's just like boom, 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 and we can just continue to progress and make those
Absolutely.
have you feel good too. And I think that's important as well. Again, especially as we age, feeling good because it is just going to take you longer to recover from an injury. And we have had to deal with those in the past and it took a while, right?
Yeah.
But now we've gotten back to 100% and we've been able to maintain that.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's kind of dig into some of those things a little bit. You're absolutely right. In working together for almost 5 years, we are, in my opinion, we are better able to accomplish our goals and make it work within my lifestyle. Okay. So a lot of times, like you and I will have, I mean, we obviously we communicate on a regular basis.
Yep.
Okay. But so for this year, I went to Tyler and I said, listen, my wife and I are finally getting out of the country. We're going to celebrate our 35th wedding anniversary. Sorry to sound vain, but I would like to be a little bit leaner, for that trip. So then we could kind of back into that. How long is that going to take? Okay, we don't want to, and one of the things that we talked about was we don't want to diet right up to vacation because I'll blow up like a balloon. So we wanted to kind of ease back into that vacation. But again, backing into all that, we were able to take 9 months of not dieting and just building that metabolism. And I know, like, I was kind of playing some mental games, like, how many calories can I consume and not have my waist increase? I just thought that was kind of an interesting, kind of study. So yeah, kind of going through those years or those different seasons, those seasons of life. And, we talked about the pandemic and injuries and how are we going to make all of this ebb and flow with life, right? Because because if we can make this ebb and flow with life, that's going to make it so much easier.
Yep.
Like we're not going to go on a cut in December. I'm not going to do it, right? I like Christmas cookies, right? So we know we learn these things. That's not going to happen. All right, so what are we going to do? Well, let's use November and December to start, a little bit more of a bulk then and build. In terms of the strength stuff, I just think that this is interesting. I had pretty major back surgery about 22 years ago. Prior to my back surgery, I spent part of my life being unable to walk. Yeah. And slowly, you got me into deadlifting. I was a little nervous. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, my back feels fantastic. And listen, don't get me wrong. I see some of the numbers these guys are pulling at the gym, but for me and where I'm at in my life, I am very happy with my deadlift numbers and what I'm doing and how my back is responding and how we took it slowly and gradually. And I would say my back is now stronger now than ever. So yes, it does take time. It does take time, but we'll get there.
It's a journey, it's a process. And kind of like you had alluded to early on, just things that you wish you had known earlier. But sometimes it's, those things you wish you had known, you never would have known if you hadn't had that experience, right? And sometimes it's just you have to go through the whatever experience it is to learn those things that you wish you had known, right? Unfortunately,
Yes.
we're not built with being able to tell the future quite well. And there was a couple things in there that I kind of wanted to touch on that I thought were pretty cool and I think important to talk about. And one was, how many calories you could eat and not gain inches on your waist. And more so that there's this common belief that as we age, our metabolism just goes in the tank. Just simply that isn't true. Yes, our metabolism does decrease as we age, but not nearly to the extent of what most people think it does. Your metabolism is just largely determined by your genetics, and your genetics don't, necessarily change throughout the course of your life. And a lot of time, what it is you just become less active as you age. You do muscle mass as you, I think it's once you hit about 35, 40, you're losing X amount of year, and there's just nothing you can do. That's the natural part of aging. And then you do throw in a, relatively unhealthy diet, and then we can start to see why many people tend to think that. And so, certainly there's always going to be outliers, and I think you are potentially a bit of an outlier just, for your age and where your maintenance is, because you could consume around 2,700-ish calories a day and maintain your weight. And that's a decent amount of food, if you really break it down. But you're, again, like you said, you're turning 62, able to consume 2,700 calories, and you talk about how well you feel. And I think it just points the importance of just taking care of yourself as we age and being happy with whatever that is for you. Like you said, maybe you're not deadlifting as much as a 35-year-old. I mean, you shouldn't be, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Someone may never deadlift 300 pounds, but that's okay too. It really is about finding what those personal health values are and finding whatever that mix is. And that kind of led me into the second one is, melding it with your life and those health values. During our non-dieting phases, you like to go out with your wife once or twice a week for dinner and some cocktails, and you make that work. You're on point throughout the course of the week. We utilize weekly averages when needed, and you don't let a healthy lifestyle necessarily interfere with your life. You've been able to find that middle ground where you're still able to enjoy whatever it is, but be your healthiest version.
Yeah. So I call that the golden ring. I really think I won. I got the golden ring. Yeah, when we're not dieting, I watch what I eat all the time. So here's my personal golden ring. Can I enjoy the food that I like to enjoy, live a healthy lifestyle? I enjoy going to the gym. I like lifting weights 4 times a week. That's cool. Other than that, where I'm walking, I don't really do any cardio for most of the year. I will go out with my wife and I'll go eat whatever, have a couple cocktails. I'm not a big dessert guy, but really, I don't even worry about it. The scale doesn't pop up the next day. I just feel like I'm just cruising. My body fat stays at whatever. I never really jump, but let's say 16% or 17%. And I'm just cruising there year long. And it's I just feel like I'm getting healthier and healthier and healthier and loving life. And then we get up to a point where I want to get a little bit leaner. And Tyler, it just seems to me like we don't have to make big changes.
No. And typically now, we do about 12 weeks at a time, right? And maybe we do one a year roughly, I would say on average, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, most people, they tell me they want to diet for a vacation. I usually stay away from that. But because of just your overall level of consistency and for how long we've been working together, right? And you just get to learn, so much about someone's body and how they respond. I'm going to be a little bit more comfortable because it's not going to be one of those things where, yeah, we do diet, you go on your vacation and you just gain all the weight back. And it's that was kind of pointless, right?
Right.
And so, it speaks to that year-to-year consistency, the day-to-day, the month-to-month, and the process, yeah, just becomes so automated where you don't have to worry about it. You don't really think about it in a sense. And it is really just, part of who David is, and it's your identity. at this point. And that is a big important part of working with people where maybe this isn't their identity yet, and making that identity shift.
Identity. You know, again, I was telling you stories about 1981 and 1982 and in all that history. So I guess you could make an argument that it is a big part of me, but I tell you what, but now like that identity has absolutely shifted. My grandson, when I put him on my back and go running around his yard, giving him horsey back rides on Big Papa's back, and he has a smile from ear to ear, that's my identity. And I don't ever want to stop doing that.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to stop doing that.
Yep. Yeah. No. And I think that is it is an important thing that I, even in my coaching, have shifted more towards, and trying to get people to look more at that long-term idea of, being able to move when you're 40, in your 50s and your 60s and your 70s, right? And it is a fine balance, because we have such a hard time looking that far in advance, right? It almost kind of feels fake to us at 35, 25.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we build that foundation now. And it's never too late, don't get me wrong, but the more you can do earlier on, the more that's going to pay off in the end, right? It's just that compound interest of doing all these little things now that are just going to have you feel just that much better as you continue to age.
Those analogies with those financial investments are spot on. It's the time. It's not whether you're putting in $50 or $1,000 every paycheck. It's the fact that you put in $50 and you did it, month after month after month after month. It is the exact same thing. And then again, there's certainly aspects to being in your 60s that are not fun. I'll tell you that. But I just feel like it is just like a nice cruise right now. Like I just feel so good. I feel so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you would look at the majority of the population at 62, you're probably in that that 98 percentile of how well you move, how well you feel, your mortality rate, and your digestion, and all of these things that, you're never going to get away from as you age. But that doesn't mean that not doing these things isn't going to at least help slow down that process.
No, but it's so interesting. So obviously, like most of my friends are like my age, and a buddy of mine a couple months ago had like a bourbon night. So a bunch of guys get together for a bourbon night. And it was cool, maybe, 12, 15 guys there. The amount of meds that everybody was like, oh, I take this statin and I'm on this and I'm on this. Da, 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 da. I'm like, oh my God. Like I'm on nothing.
Yeah,
I take a vitamin.
Maybe, but yeah.
It's crazy. And I want even that, even like keeping the meds away. I'm happy to push that off as much as possible.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of that. I think it's pretty fantastic to, just hear a little bit of your story and kind of where you've been at this for a long time, but you've never stopped learning. And I think a big part of it too is you've yes, we're going to go through times where maybe it isn't as fun, but you've also never stopped really not enjoying it, right? Like it's always been a fun process. Like you said, you've always enjoyed going to the gym. You always enjoy just throwing the weight around. And I think that's such an important part of the longevity is finding that enjoyment. And I think about, as an example, like our training program that we've been doing, like we've kind of kept it basically the same for a decent amount of time in terms of the exercises, the rep progression, how we've been doing that. And it's like, we have that discussion every time. I'm like, well, are you enjoying it? Like, is this good? You want to keep doing this? You're like, yeah, I love it. Awesome. Like that's such a big part of that longevity is like actually enjoying it, right? And so we've been able to kind of, like you said, find that golden ring.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So okay, maybe I am pretty weird. I do get very excited about getting a new workout. Okay. And I also get very excited about, so the workouts kind of stay the same, but we're moving stuff around. And
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and that does involve me kind of guessing at what weights I'm going to be using on certain things. And I get way too big of a kick out of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the motivation, I think what's helped me is having a lot of various sources of motivation. And on any given day, I might pluck this, or I might pluck that, or I might, um, you know, focusing on being healthy, or focusing on being stronger, focusing on my grandchild, or focusing on my wife, and just having like those variety of sources just to kind of keep me going.
Yeah, that's certainly important. I see it a lot where maybe someone's only motivation or even just their main motivation is only just to like, I'm going to be a little happier once I look a little bit better. And I would say almost, yeah, 10 out of 10, like that person never lasts. And there's no consistency there because, from someone who has been stage lean to, for myself, a bit overweight at 225, I've been 180, I've been 225 and everything in between. Your happiness doesn't really necessarily change based off of how you look or what weight you are or anything like that. And I can also tell you, and I'm sure you can speak to it as well, the I don't wannas never go away, no matter how long you've been training. I certainly have my days where I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't feel like doing this. But you pick those different levels of motivation, or it has become just kind of a part of your identity where, yeah, that emotion might come up, but because you're just so used to ignoring it, you just go and you just do it and you get it done, right? And so, yeah, I think it speaks to having those different levels of motivation and looking at your life and going, okay, wanting to look better isn't a bad thing, but when it's our only thing, that's where we can start to run into some trouble.
Yeah, if I think someone is very, it is not going to be good if they're waiting for abs to find their happiness.
Yes. That's that is 100% because from two people who have had abs before, you are not very happy when you're that lean.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is actually probably
you're pretty miserable.
that is the worst I've ever felt, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, you're not in. Yeah, it's just yeah. I always when someone tells me they want to be 10% or less, and I go, no, you don't.
yeah. No, it's there's other challenges that go along with it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. All right. So, I mean, kind of before we wrap up, any last words of wisdom? I know you had some questions you had said you
sure.
wanted to ask me, and I was curious about those. I didn't know this was coming. So, this is
Okay, so
yeah.
yeah, let me ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
In I'm going to kind of assume that maybe I'm one of the older people that you work with, and I know we're all different people, different ages, but are there any commonalities amongst older people that you see?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say that you are one of my older clients, if not the oldest. So it's a little hard to say what is a commonality just because I haven't worked with a ton of older clients. I would say that, there has been times where, maybe in the 50s I've worked with a few. Um, I mean, nutrition is hard for a lot of people because a lot of times someone at that point hasn't really done a whole lot and a lot of your habits are pretty ingrained at that
Right.
and it's a really hard thing to switch and to change and because most of your life is kind of been established at this point,
Hmm.
right? I think as we get a little bit older, it's harder to change those types of things. And I would say nutrition is the hardest for a lot of people, but
I would imagine.
as we get a bit older, is that, and then dealing with injuries and dealing with aches and pains and stuff like that, just because you are just not recovering as well. So I would say those two, but yeah, I also haven't worked with a ton either.
Yeah. So I was, as I think about that question, I do think that as we get older, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, this is just me talking. As we get older and as we get more fit, the details matter more.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
would say
so as an
nuance.
older fit guy, I just think like sometimes like the I really need to focus on the details.
Yeah. I think you do pay attention more, I would say, to obviously, like your protein intake.
Yeah.
You aren't, maybe you just can't eat as much as you used to. Your training, you got to be pretty in tune with your body of like, okay, do I need a deload? Do I need to take a break? Is this exercise right for me? Like, and you have to, maybe be a little humbler or more humble to say, hey, I do need to do a little bit less so that I'm not kind of running myself into the ground. So yeah, I would say details for sure.
You
Because you're
know,
also like for you, like, I mean, because you've also been doing this for so long, you're just getting closer and closer to your genetic potential, right? And so that is also then where maybe some of those smaller details are more important.
what, like I was saying, that there's not a lot of positives that come around with getting older, but a couple of positives though for me is I don't care what people think in the gym. Like in terms of, people worried about their bench press or what their squat's going to be or whatever. I don't care. Like legit, I am
Yeah.
happy. I thank God every day that I'm able to go into the gym and do what I do, whatever weight I'm lifting. So it does help with that whole injury thing. I have no ego lifting. I got none of that, man. I don't have to worry about it. So
Yeah.
that is a positive. That is
Yeah.
a positive.
Yeah.
Okay, a non-old guy question for you.
Okay.
Okay, when just a generic question. You go into the gym. Maybe you're traveling. You go into some commercial gym. What
Yeah.
is like the number when you look around? What is maybe like the number one, number two mistakes that you see people making at the gym with their own training?
I mean, you kind of just touched on them, ego lifting and form.
Okay.
I mean, so I think those two can go hand in hand, right? Because if someone's ego lifting, typically their form isn't great. It's one of those things, that if you can't have technical proficiency with a lift, you're wasting your time. Like you just are. Like there's no point. And so, not only that, you're just raising that risk of injury.
Yes.
I would say number two is almost spending too much time in the gym.
Hmm.
I know that can be a debate and how much volume and this and that, but it's almost like, not a lot of intentionality. Like I don't really see anyone log workouts. I mean, maybe they're doing it on their phone. I'm still a pen and paper guy, but like, yeah, just no intentionality there for 90 minutes. And sometimes I'll watch someone and I'm like, I just got three full exercises done. You did one, right?
Right.
And it's really just you're there, in, out, 110%, go recover. So I would say like kind of those two are the biggest I notice.
Yeah, it does seem like there are a lot of people just kind of winging it, and and part of me says like, well, it's cool. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're doing your thing. But
Yeah.
for me, like I'm busy. I want to kind of maximize those results.
Yeah, if
So
you're looking at it from a coach's perspective, like, that's what I would say. So yeah, those are the two biggest things.
speaking of which, you'll like this. So our basement got flooded the other year, and I was a couple years ago, and I was going through some old boxes, and I found my training diary from 1985.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
1984,
Yeah.
1983, 1983. So it goes way back with all my notes and
Track your
what was,
workouts. Track your
yeah,
workouts. It's like it shouldn't be, but I think it's one of the most underrated things you can do.
that's how we progress,
Yeah.
my
Yep.
opinion.
Yep.
So
Big time. Big time.
awesome, awesome.
You got anything else? Or is that it?
No, I think that was it for my
All
questions
right.
for today.
I like it.
I let you off the hook.
Those were awesome. Those were fantastic. It's always good, right?
Absolutely.
All right. I mean, that kind of wraps up our time. David, any last words of wisdom for our young lifters out there? One thing, two things that you said, I wish I knew X when I was that young. I know we talked nutrition, and any other words of wisdom.
You know, I mean, we touched on a lot of things. I mean, nutrition is so important, and there are some things that I think are easy to discount. Sleep and recovery is especially, I think, for young people. Oh, I don't need that. I don't feel tired. Oh, I'll just have another cup of coffee. No, coffee is not the same as sleep. Right. I mean, we all need to know that coffee is not the same as sleep, and we do need more rest and recovery than what we think we do. And I guess the other thing I would say is we need to be aware of all the different stresses in our life. And I look at it this way, like I have one stress bucket, and I need to manage like what is being poured into that. And whether it's workouts or life or trying to get off social media or and sleep and all of those things, all like life stuff compounds that. And we definitely need to kind of manage, have an honest conversation with ourselves and really truly manage that stress, manage that rest, manage that recovery, because nobody's going to manage that stuff for you. And really, I don't know, I guess I think that, I think like a younger body is pretty forgiving about those things. It's certainly not as forgiving as we get older, but I think about like, man, a young person, if they would just focus a little bit more on the nutrition and getting good sleep, man, their results would just explode. They would really explode. And I know that's not the fun stuff. That's not the fancy stuff. That's I know that's what nobody wants to hear. So now you got one more guy barking at you to try to, whatever, go to bed earlier and,
Yeah,
that's all.
they're cliches for a reason.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. True. There's true cliches. Yes.
yeah. All right, fantastic. I think those are great. Appreciate you hopping on, David. It was just really good to always catch up with you and just rehash some of our journey. That's always good. So
Always a pleasure. Anything I can do for you or your folks, just please reach out anytime. I would love it.
I love it. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for today. Thanks you guys for listening. Make sure to just subscribe, share with your friends, leave us a review. We'd greatly appreciate it. And if any of you are interested in some one-on-one coaching, just make sure to check out fitbodinstitute.com, or you can shoot me a message at tyler@fitbodinstitute.com, and we'll schedule a Zoom metabolic consultation. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for listening.